She thought I wouldn't notice. She thought I was too old, too fragile, too blind to catch her sticky fingers. My daughter-in-law came into my home, smiling sweetly, but behind that smile was a hunger that went deeper than respect or love. One night, I caught her rifling through my jewelry box, the same box that carried every memory of my life, my mother's necklace, my wedding ring, the brooch my father gave me before he passed, and in that second, my world didn't shatter, it boiled. She wasn't just stealing metal and stones, she was stealing my history, my dignity, my trust. I knew right then I couldn't let it slide. What I did next would change how she looked at me forever, and she never saw it coming. The next morning, I played dumb. I poured her coffee, asked about her day, and even complimented her new shoes. Though I knew she'd bought them with money she hadn't earned, inside, my chest burned with rage. I kept remembering the way her hands trembled as she shut my jewelry box, like a thief who knew she'd crossed the line but thought she'd get away with it. My son, bless him, was clueless. He thought his wife was a saint, a perfect daughter-in-law, who helped me with chores and treated me with respect. If only he'd seen the smirk on her face when she thought I wasn't watching. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, knowing I had two choices: confront her and risk tearing my son's marriage apart, or play the long game. And something in me whispered, play it smart, make her think she's winning, until the day I decide she won't. So, I let her think she had me fooled. I noticed little things missing week after week. A gold ring here, a silver bracelet there. At first, I thought maybe she was testing the waters, seeing how far she could push me without me speaking up. She would borrow jewelry for a family dinner or a friend's wedding, and then conveniently forget to return it. But I wasn't blind. I watched her flaunt my pieces on her social media, smiling like she owned the world. The rage I felt could have set the house on fire, but I held it in. I let her dance in her illusion of control, because I knew deep down when the moment came, my revenge would hit harder than any confrontation ever could. The deeper she dug her own grave, the sweeter my payback would be. I started planning, quietly, like a detective working a case. I bought a small camera and tucked it inside my jewelry box, disguised as a button on the velvet lining. I placed one of my most valuable necklaces front and center, knowing she couldn't resist the temptation. The first time I caught her on video, her eyes lit up as if she'd struck gold, literally. She slipped it into her purse, glanced around, and smirked, convinced I'd never know. Watching that footage made my blood boil, but it also gave me power. Every time she crept into my room, I captured her red-handed. Piece by piece, she was building my evidence, while thinking she was building her collection. What she didn't realize was that every stolen jewel was another nail in the coffin of her little charade. I didn't confront her right away. That would have been too easy. Instead, I let her keep going, all while smiling to her face like I didn't know a thing. I even made small talk with her over coffee, asking her about her day, while she sat there wearing earrings she'd stolen from me. The audacity made me want to laugh, but I held it in. Then, when my son mentioned how she was pushing him to invest in a business, I knew exactly what she was up to, funding her little empire with my jewels. That's when I decided it was time to set the real trap. I called a family dinner, invited a few close relatives, and made sure everyone would be there. On the surface, it looked like a normal gathering, but deep down, I knew it was the night she'd expose herself to everyone. The night of the dinner, I dressed myself in the plainest outfit. I owned nothing flashy, nothing that screamed for attention. I wanted the spotlight firmly on her. As everyone gathered around the table, laughing and catching up, I made a little announcement. I told them I'd misplaced some jewelry and hoped it would turn up soon. Instantly, her face stiffened, just for a split second, but it was enough for me to notice. Then, I sweetly suggested that maybe someone had borrowed it without asking. The air grew tense, and forks clinking against plates stopped midair. I could feel the eyes darting around the table, but I kept my gaze steady on her. She fumbled, reaching for her water glass, pretending not to notice. That's when I knew the cracks were starting to show, and it was only a matter of time before she broke under the weight of her own lies. She tried to laugh it off, saying maybe I was just getting forgetful in my old age. That was the moment I struck. I calmly mentioned how I'd placed a small security camera in my bedroom after misplacing things before. Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. Everyone at the table perked up. I told them I hadn't even checked the footage yet, but maybe now was a good time. Her face drained of color, and I swear you could hear her heart pounding from across the room. My son asked what I meant, and I repeated it slowly, savoring every syllable. I said if someone had touched what wasn't theirs, the whole family would see it for themselves. The silence that followed was heavy, thick enough to choke on, and she was the only one sweating. She couldn't hold it together any longer. Her voice cracked as she begged me not to play the footage, stammering excuses about borrowing the jewelry to get it cleaned. My son's face shifted from confusion to pure rage as he realized what she had been doing behind his back. I leaned back in my chair, calm as a stone, and told her it was too late if she wanted forgiveness. She should have thought of that before sneaking into my room. My grandchildren sat wide-eyed, watching their mother crumble. She tried to stand, but her knees buckled. My son slammed his fist on the table and demanded the truth, and finally, with tears streaking her makeup, she admitted it. Every lie unraveled in seconds, and suddenly she wasn't the perfect wife she had pretended to be. She was exposed, raw and cornered, with nowhere left to run. I let the silence stretch, the weight of her confession hanging heavy in the room. Then I said the words that sealed her fate. You won't be touching a single piece of this family's legacy again. My son's jaw tightened, and he told her to pack her things. The woman who had strutted around this house as if she already owned it was now dragging her suitcase out the front door in tears. Neighbors watching from their porches as the truth spread like wildfire. I didn't yell, I didn't gloat high, just stood tall, knowing my dignity and my family's legacy were intact. And the best part, that hidden camera was still rolling, capturing every desperate moment of her downfall. She thought she'd stolen my jewelry, but what I stole was her mask. She never forget the day the old woman she underestimated turned the tables on her.